right. So the Scarlet Ibis part 2, as we like to say when we want to sound fancy. Again, I am going to set my timer. I don't promise to abide strictly by it, but it is kind of a guide to help me out. So I'm going to set my timer. We're on page 9, very bottom. Page 9. We finished up yesterday with that. So from the beginning, Doodle was a terrible liar. And he got me in the habit. Now, again, I think when it says that he was a liar, I don't think that actually means these kids are being malicious or trying to be deceitful. I think it means that the brothers sit around and tell silly stories. And I can tell this because of the context there. The older brother, our narrator, says that his lies were scary, involved, and pointless, but that Doodles were crazy. So, although it says lies, they're just kind of imaginative make-believe. And again, the narrator says mine were scary, but look at the narrators. Look at Doodles. The peacock with the 10-foot tail, there's that kind of color and whimsy, the golden robe and glitter, and the peacock would take care of Peter. So we look at these stories that these boys would tell. And again, I feel like that's part of the characterization. The narrator says his were scary, and Doodles seem peaceful and protective and colorful and vibrant. All right. And then I do want to spend just a little bit of time here on page 9 because, again, these boys are young. Where do we leave off with? Let's see here. Doodle is 6 and the narrator is 12 years old. So these are kids. And when you know kids, you know that they don't have an understanding of love and marriage and that kind of developed, sexuality or however you want to talk about that. So when it says that they would talk about their future, and when it says that Doodle would marry Mama, and that the narrator could marry Daddy, keep in mind that this is not some sort of strange, weird perversion. This is not incest. This is sweet. This is cute. A 6-year-old who loves his family so much that he wants to stay, all 4 of them together. Because remember, in his 6-year-old mind, all he knows is that when people love each other, they get married. He's like, I love Mama. You love Daddy. I love you. Why don't we all just marry together? And so it's not a weird thing. Don't be weirded out. If you have any notes about that, make sure you go back and you address them and say that this is a sweet, cute little scene where they're just sharing this deep love. And Doodle is just so happy and so content with his life that he can't imagine things ever changing. Okay? And the narrator, who's 12, who probably knows better, he doesn't want to ruin it for his brother. And so he just goes, yes, that would be sweet for all of us to live together forever. All right, moving right along in a quick clip here. Okay, page 11 has a very important thing going on. This own infallibility, and this is one of the vocabulary words we looked at, meaning the narrator taught Doodle to walk, and so now he thinks, all right, I can do this. I'm tough, I'm good, I'm smart, I'm capable. I can't fail. That's what infallibility means. I can't fail. But the narrator says he believed in his own infallibility, meaning he believed that he wouldn't be able to fail, which of course is never true because all of us fail all the time. All right, but he was going to teach Doodle how to run, swim, climb trees, fight. This was going to be the brother that he wanted. Remember that conflict? The brother he wanted versus the brother he had. Finally, he's going to get Doodle to be that brother, right? Okay, school was coming less than a year away. Doodle, you can't go to school being some little wimpy kid who can barely walk. Now think about it. You've probably seen kids at schools in wheelchairs or with little walkers or something. We know that that doesn't make them less of a person. We know that they are capable in a lot of ways. But this narrator has such a strong view of what he wants his brother to be. All right, so keep that in mind. We're going to come back to that. All right. Winter, not much progress. And of course, winter, cold and rainy and wet and snowy. So they just mostly staying inside. And then we get to the summer of 1918. Now, this is the first time we actually get a date. So if the narrator is 12, go back 12 years. The story began in what? 1912 is when the story first began. And if you remember the very, very beginning where the narrator says, I remember Doodle. So although the story starts in 1912 and now is in 1918, and then he is sometime in the future, maybe, I don't know, 1930, 1940, 1950. We don't exactly know. All right. But let's see here. Look what happens here. All right. So here's what's going on here. So we got this time period, 1918. You might know from your history class is World War I. And so we start hearing these names that would be battles from World War I. And when we talk about the Pearsons, whose boy Joe, they're just talking about Joe who was killed in the war. And they're being aware of their community and their family. And so, honestly, it doesn't have a lot to do with the story, and good critical readers will know that it's really not important to our story. Historically, those things happened, but they're just kind of side notes. So they don't really help with anything. All right. Meaning we're moving right along. All right. Now, look at this. We came to that clove of seasons. So important. When did we last see this word clove? Way back on page 1. It was the clove of seasons. First line. It was the clove of season. And so now the narrator gets to that clove of seasons. So whatever is going to happen in this story, whatever happened, it was. And so we came to that clove. What is it? What is this event? What is this one occurrence? The whole point of this story is to this occurrence that happened during this time period when the ibis came. So we're getting close. We're getting close to that moment. The whole point of the story. So we came to that clove of seasons. School is a few weeks away. And so now the narrator is really pushing. Come on, Doodle, you can do this. You can do this. Don't you want to be like everybody else? And then this is such an important question. This is not just a question for Doodle and for the narrator. This is a question for us in the great conversation. Does it make any difference? Does it matter if I'm not as fast? Does it matter if I can swim or can't swim? Does it matter if I can throw a perfect spiral football? Do I have to have those skills? And ask yourself, do you? Do you have to have those things? Well, our narrator says it does make a difference. He says it is important. You need to be like everybody else. Remember, he's just a 12-year-old boy, maybe 13 at this point. So let's not be too harsh on our narrator. He's still, he was still a child himself. All right. So then we get this storm. Okay? And let's see here, it's calm, peaceful, rain frog, so it's a storm. And then we get to this part, it says, what's that? Said Doodle. They're sitting around having their meal, and Doodle sees something. Okay? The narrator runs as fast as he can, and it's so great. It's so family, right? As the narrator runs, Doodle just stands up and pushes in his chair, and Mom's like, whoa, get back here. Pick that up. Put that away. Meaning Doodle got out first, and the narrator got out second. Okay? It's a great big red bird. Now, keep in mind that, I want to make sure that you can see this. Keep in mind we're talking about the Scarlet Ibis here. Now, our narrator here is in, North Carolina, I think, is where the story is supposed to take place. And a Scarlet Ibis comes from the Caribbean area. So if we look at this map, we got Florida way down here. This bird naturally is in this area and should be way up. Let's see here. I don't know if that's actually switching my screen. I don't know how to do that here. Shoot. Well, sorry about that. I can just post the slideshow later. Bummer. Let's see if I can switch this. Oh, I don't know how to do that. Sorry. Okay. Point is this. The Scarlet Ibis does not belong in this part of the country. It's never been seen here before. The bird belongs much farther south in the tropic regions. And so here's the point, and you can add this to your notes. This bird doesn't belong. It is out of place. Okay? And it's tired. And then the bird falls down out of the tree onto the ground, and the bird is dead. The Scarlet Ibis is dead. Then we get this real sweet thing here where Doodle is not hungry anymore, and he buries the bird, and the family stands in the window watching Doodle bury this bird. Remember, it's a physically handicapped child using a big shovel, twice as long as him, trying to dig a hole for this bird. So it's a sweet, tender moment for Doodle. Doodle is a caring, sweet guy. All right. Now we are quickly coming into the very last part of the story, the home stretch. All right. So, page 16. Time was short. We're going to come back to the bird in a little bit. Time was short. Okay. We've got a lot of work to do. All right. If we're going to make Doodle be able to swim and row a boat and all this, we got to get to work. Now, remember the conflict. The brother that the narrator wants versus the brother that he got. Now, here's the thing. They've kind of merged. The narrator has kind of been able to make Doodle the brother he wants. So here they are, last day of summer, and they're rowing across the swamp, and Doodle is tired, and then this storm comes in. Okay? I made Doodle row back against the tide. The clouds came up, lightning in the sky. Now, all of us would probably be pretty scared, pretty nervous. We see the clouds get dark, lightning starting to hit, and we're out on the water, and we're going to be rowing as fast as we can. And Doodle was tired and scared. And he was so tired that when he got off the boat, he actually fell down into the mud. The narrator helps him up, and he smiled at me ashamedly. Doodle looks at his brother, and this is going to take me a few minutes.
Have a good week.
All right, take care. Doodle smiled at the narrator ashamedly, like Doodle knows, I failed you, my brother. I didn't do a good job, which is heartbreaking because Doodle has done so much here. Doodle has not only learned to walk, but now he's rowing a boat, and yet he still feels like he failed his brother. He had failed, and we both knew it. Now, here's the thing. What are words that can solder cracked pride? Solder means to bring them back together. The narrator's pride was cracked. He was offended by his brother. You can't do it. You're incapable. And Doodle feels cracked. He feels bad. He wasn't able to do what was wanted of him. And I knew he was watching me for a sign of mercy. Doodle was looking up to me, his big brother, waiting for me to say, Doodle, it's okay. Never mind. I still love you. Doodle's looking at him for that. What does the narrator do? Walks faster and faster and runs. And he leaves Doodle behind in the storm with the rain and the lightning because he's so angry because Doodle is not what he wanted. Doodle is not what he expected. Doodle did not live up to his expectations. And then we have Doodle falling farther and farther behind, crying out, brother, brother, don't leave me. Don't leave me. And if that doesn't break your heart, then you're a heartless rock. All right. So we have this bitter streak of cruelty again. And the narrator runs as fast as he can. He's so angry. He's so upset. And here's this anger coming out in him. He hadn't can't run very far when this anger evanesced. And again, one of our vocabulary words were just, the anger leaves just like smoke leaves, which means he was really angry, but he let it go. Let it go, let it go, right? All right, there's my timer, which is just fine because we are coming to the end. So we're doing real good. All right. So his anger evanesces. He turns around. He goes back to find his brother. The rain is just pouring. It says, it's just coming down so hard, straight down like ropes hanging from the sky. They're just so thick. It's almost like one continuous raindrop, a big thick rope of rain. And he finds Doodle, his face buried in his arms, his knees pulled up. He's hiding his body from the rain and the cold. And Doodle doesn't answer. And the narrator touches him, and he falls over. And the narrator cries, "Doodle, Doodle." And his neck was red. There was blood dripping. And the narrator screams above the pounding storm. And he lays there crying, sheltering his fallen Scarlet Ibis from the heresy of rain. The heresy here, this idea of mockery, of religious mockery. So the rain is so mocking them. It's so evil. It's like the entire natural world is mocking our narrator and saying, you think you've got it bad? We as nature are going to make it worse. It's going to rain on you and nobody cares and you're just wet and dirty and Doodle's dead. It is the saddest, most heartbreaking story. All right, we got to move on. So let's talk quickly about the idea, and I won't go over to the picture because I don't know if that's working or not. But let's just talk about the symbolism of the coffin. Certainly death is there, right? Coffin is death. Now, we take the coffin and we put it up in the barn. What does that mean symbolically? It means that death has been put away. We have the coffin for a child who is going to die. The child does not die. Do we need the coffin? No. We put the coffin up because the child's not going to die. That's fantastic. Let's talk about the symbolism of the go-kart. You have a child who can live, but he can't move on his own. So we put him in the go-kart, like a wagon, and we drag him around. Okay? And then we take the go-kart and we put that up in the barn loft. What is that symbolically saying? It's saying we don't need the go-kart anymore. The child who is going to die didn't die. The child who couldn't walk is walking. Doesn't need these things. We keep putting them away. We don't need them anymore. Let's talk about the Scarlet Ibis. The Scarlet Ibis doesn't belong. It is beautiful. And it truly is. It's an incredibly beautiful bird. It's from an exotic, wonderful place, right? The tropics. That's awesome. But it dies. What do we know about Doodle? Isn't he so sweet and beautiful? Beautiful like a Scarlet Ibis? What happens to the Ibis? Ibis dies. Look here how Doodle is described at the very end. He lay very awkwardly with his head thrown far back and his neck appeared long and slim. Well, think about the picture of the Ibis. It has that long S-curved neck, and you can almost see the dead Doodle with a long neck, almost in an S shape, right? The Scarlet Ibis symbolizes Doodle, which is pretty cool. This beautiful creature who doesn't belong. Does Doodle belong on this earth? Frankly, not really. He should have died at the very beginning. But he persevered, and he persevered, and he persevered, and he made life good. That Scarlet Ibis has no reason to be where it was. It flew hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles, exhausted. It had no reason to be there. And then when it finally got there, it did eventually die. They're almost the same exact story, Doodle and the Scarlet Ibis, which is really cool. So we got the symbolism of the coffin, symbolism of the go-kart, and symbolism of the Scarlet Ibis. Okay. We've got the great lines here about um, the cruelty. We've got this cool connection of the clove of seasons, making it the story circular. So it ends with Doodle dying. And now, if you go back to the beginning, it makes sense that this old man is sitting there. And around this time every year, the time of year when he essentially caused his brother to die, that he would sit there as an old man and remember his sweet little brother who he caused to die because of his pride, because of his cruelty. Ouch. You have to live with that. That's brutal. I'm sure there's plenty I did not cover, but hopefully that gives you a better understanding of the story and some of the major things that are going on in this story. If you have questions, please reach out, email, and all right, I think that sums it up for me. Take care. Sayonara. Hasta la vista, baby.